time to work out then how to fit the new engine into the space where the old engine was. They're quite different engines. The old one was a V8, so it was 4 cylinders long. The new one is a straight 6, so obviously 6 cylinders long, and it's a physically longer engine by quite quite a bit. Now, were it a smaller engine, I'd be inclined just to hang it over the space and take it from there. But because the engine alone weighs half a ton, and we're going to install it engine and gearbox together, rather than just dangle it in situ and try and work out where to put the brackets, I've taken an idea from Project Binky and made an engine template. I'm sure most of you know Project Binky. Those of you who don't, they're a couple of chaps that are working on a project to build a 4-wheel drive Mini. That's the short version of it. And it's brilliant. Their approach to engineering is quite different to ours. Yeah, better is probably the word. Yeah, it's a great series. Anyway, what they do with fitting then all their big components, rather than try and just ram them in, they make a template of that component and offer it up to the Mini and work out how much they're going to have to butcher of the Mini to fit it in. So with a bit of careful measurement of the DAF chassis, I came up with this thing made from offcuts mostly that I had lying around. It's very simple, but it just gives me the dimensions that I need to work with the engine that's going to go in the Zil. This is it then, this is what I came up with. The rear engine mounts, which are on the bell housing of the gearbox actually, are here, and the holes are in exactly the right place. And these are the front engine mounts, these 4 holes here at the front. I'll drop into the DAF and it'll make more sense. I expect it's gone invisible now as soon as I put it with the rest of the metalwork that's knocking about here. Possibly you can make out here are the rear engine mounts, here are the front engine mounts, and these bars here give the distance between them. So this then gives me the dimensions that I need to work with the Zil. A very simple idea then, but you can see how using this I'm able to model all the relevant dimensions of this engine without having to actually carry it about. Obviously it doesn't give me the height nor the depth of the engine, but I'm not troubled about that because under the bonnet of the Zil is tons of height, and I've already worked out that the depth is going to be fine. The sump will clear the front diff, which is the crucial thing. The rest we can work with. So it's the front to back difference between where the front mounts and the rear mounts are going to go that's really crucial. Anyway, let's go and offer it up to the Zil. If we use the existing rear mounts then, the front of the engine would be here. Which isn't going to work. They wouldn't, yeah, even if I did put it there, there wouldn't be any room for the radiator. I think the front of the engine would probably be poking out the grille, so that's no good. if I mount it there, which is putting the front mounts where the Zil front mount was on this bracket here, then the engine's going to be too far back. The bell housing is going to push into the brake linkage there, which I'm not inclined to move really. I think I'll leave that there. I put a batten of wood across the road springs there to rest the back of it on, and it's about the right height, I think. Front end here is too high, but I think this is about the position that the engine's going to be in. So I'm going to cut away half of this lot here. This bit here is where the radiator's sat, and I want to keep that bit and cut away behind it here. My intention is to install the brackets off the DAF, attach them to the chassis rail there and there. They'll then pick up where these holes are, these front engine mounts. And the same at the back here. I'm going to take out these original engine mounts and install the DAF ones to pick up these holes here and here. The first glimpse then of where I'm hoping to put the new engine. Now I've made the engine template, then I don't need to have the engine mounts in situ in the old DAF chassis anymore. These are the mounts that I intend to use to mount the DAF engine in the Zil, so it's time to take them out. While I'm at it, might as well pull off more of this plumbing as well. The front mounts are riveted onto the chassis, so I'm going to have to grind them off. The rear ones seem to be bolted, which might not actually be any easier. They look pretty rusted. Yeah, let's get into it. It's possible some of this airline may come in handy if I need to replumb bits of the Zil. This is quite nice high pressure plastic stuff. Stuff on the Zil is sort of a mixture of ancient plastic and ropey looking metal. Right, I'm hoping I'll be able to just drift these rivets out. It's possible they've been put in so well that they've swelled up in the holes and I'll have to drill them, which would be a bummer. Obviously if I had cut them off with the oxypropane, the advantage of that would be that these rivets would be red hot by now and they would just knock out. Anyway, let's see what happens. Shifting a bit. I have to go and get a more manly hammer, I think. I can't get anything bigger than the lump hammer because I'm not swinging a hammer at a thing, I'm swinging a hammer at a drift. If I get anything bigger I'm just going to probably hit my hand. No chance of that anyway. The other thing I might try first is to grind away part of the chassis. Obviously I don't want this chassis anymore. That should have the same effect as drilling, but it means I can use an angle grinder instead of a cordless drill. Yeah, let's try that a minute. Right, what I'm doing here is harvesting some bolts off of the truck, off the DAF, remains of the DAF. These are some of the bolts that held this cross member on, and these would be perfect replacements for the rivets that were on the front mount. Nice and hefty, and they're obviously going to be of decent specification as well. There were 4 of those on each side, so that's ideal. This is the old rear mount for the engine then, and that's in the wrong place, that's got to go. This is the one off the DAF. I want to put it just there. This is riveted in place rather than bolted, which is a bit annoying. And it's got 6 rivets on here, which are also holding on this. It's a massive cast bracket behind here which holds the shock absorber on. So the rivets will have to stay, but I'm going to cut the bracket. That's the plan. I'm going to cut away a bit of this. Top corner of the new mount will go on this existing bolt here. So that will pick up on that. And that will give me the positioning for the rest. And that will dictate where the front of the engine goes. That's the plan anyway. So let's see if I can cut this with the grinder. If not, I'll have to go and get the oxypropane and do it the fun way. Right, so that's both new rear engine mounts fitted, or test fitted at least. I can put my engine template in, double check it's all going to fit. So fortunately the chassis width is very nearly the same. There's about 1 mil in it, so that's fine there. You can see this is more the issue, so I'm going to have to cut about half of this away to fit the front engine mounts. But it looks like it's all going to work, which is great. Looking down on it then, this is the cross member that I've got to cut a big lump out of. And see, it's one folded piece of steel that starts here and goes down and up, across there, down, and then up a little bit, and then round that way. I think probably going to have to cut it in half. I'm going to cut along here and then torch off the rivets, and hopefully there'll be room in the chassis rails here to fit the new mounts. Right, it's taken some doing, and I've had to cut some more bits out of the engine mountings and cut a couple of rivets off of here and take one of the bolts out that holds on the power steering box here. But I've been able to use that bolt hole to line up the engine mount here. So we're in on this side. I'm putting it in here as a test fit. And then I'll try the engine template again, make sure all the 4 mounts are lined up properly. So the rear mounts have got to come in by about 1mm each, which I think there's enough tolerance on the slots where they're mounted down for that to happen. The front mounts are spot on. I've just been to measure the engine and I need 2 inches clearance from the centre line of the mountings to the front of the engine where the pulley is. And I'm going to take the fan off, so it's just a pulley I've got to worry about here. And I think, yeah, brilliant. There's just going to be room. So that's great. So I've got to drill some more holes in the front mounts, get those properly bolted in, and that's it. The mounts are in position then. People are bound to ask, how are you going to attach the DAF engine into the Zil truck? This is a perfectly reasonable question. If we were to try and take the DAF engine and mate it to the Zil gearbox, it would mean building up a whole thing here, and this bell housing would have to be completely adapted from the Zil engine that it's expecting onto this DAF engine. Instead of that, we're not going to bother with that at all. We're not bothering with the Zil gearbox. We're using the DAF engine and the DAF gearbox. Obviously, I have to modify the linkage to make it come straight out instead of the convoluted linkage that it had on a Ford control vehicle. But it'll essentially be DAF engine, DAF gearbox, and then we use this, which is the little intermediate prop shelf we've just taken off the Zil, and this will eventually have a DAF end to it and a Zil end to it. We're going to cut this in half and modify it, and then the transmission goes engine, gearbox, new prop shaft, and then transfer box. So we're going to keep the existing Zil transfer box, which, unlike a Land Rover which sits on the side, the Zil one sits all by itself, and then it feeds from there to the back and to the front, giving us 6-wheel drive on demand. Hope that's clear. Yay!
Yay!
Nothing broke.
Yeah.
Welcome to the new engine bay. A lovely diesel instead of that nasty old petrol nonsense. Loads of clearance. It fits really nicely actually. So we kept most of the original cross member here, and the pulley sits in beautifully. Sits in the new, oh well, on its original mounts, but in the new position, just swimmingly. We're up against the bulkhead. That was one bit that was an unknown to me, was whether we'd clear the bulkhead, and it's just spot on, isn't it? So the only issue we have is here, where the Zil steering box and the DAF pump, that's the compressor and the hydraulic pump in one unit there. They're currently just about touching, which we can't have. So my plan then is to just take the front engine mounts, which are these rubber things here, and I'll stack out one of them by probably just 10mm or so, and tilt the engine over just fractionally, and that will clear there. Everything else just fits really well.
Right, I reckon the kettle might have boiled.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, it's a cup of tea, I think. Jolly good. Jolly good.